the parlor that returns. They told me the worst part would be the first sight of him in the box. They were wrong. The worst part is being the last to leave and discovering that leaving doesn't work. The funeral director, Mr. Keene, smooth palms and formal sorrow, gave me the practiced hush and hand on the elbow. "Take your time," he said, arranging his sympathy with the accuracy of a florist. "We'll start closing up soon." Then there was the braid of condolences, hands I know, hands I don't, stories about my father that are mostly about the teller. A bowl of mints that taste of breath and funerals. The clock high on the parlor wall that ticks like a polite apology. The lilies leaning toward their own perfume. One by one they went. Aunt Ruth, who collects recipes and grievances. Neighbors from the cul-de-sac. The man from the hardware store who once cut a key for us and acted like it was a sacrament. Even the pastor, who speaks in italics when he wants you to hear God in his sentences. Their shoulders went past mine, their coats brushed my sleeve, they touched me and made me more alone in the touching. And then it was just me and my father's face in the satin, and the bouquet's white throats, and the carpet that swallows sound with its red mouth. I put my palm on the coffin without thinking, the way I used to touch the hood of his car to feel whether he had just come home. The wood is warm from the room, not from him. He looks like an excellent waxwork of an ordinary man. I am treacherous enough to think, if I met him now, I would not know him. "Time," says Mr. Keene from the doorway, a custodian of endings. I nod. I turn. I walk with him through the parlor, past the guest book that has recorded more beautiful signatures than our town deserves, past the spray of roses my mother would have called show-off, into the corridor where framed landscapes try to convince you death has good lighting. We reach the door. We step outside. The air changes, cooler, the honest smell of asphalt and wet leaves, and for one pure second I taste freedom, that little shock of stepping from any building into weather. And then I blink, and I am standing in the parlor again, facing the coffin, my hand on the oak as if I never took it off. "Take your time," says Mr. Keene from behind me, exactly as before. "We'll start closing up soon." I do not turn. I do not breathe. I look at my father's excellent waxwork, and at the lilies and at the clock that ticks politely, and I think, no. This time I move faster. I pivot, I walk, I shoulder the door, the same 4 steps, the same hall, the same discreet carpeting, and push into outside. I am in the parlor, hand on the oak. "Take your time," says Mr. Keene. There is a moment in any nightmare where you decide to be stupid on purpose to prove you're awake. I decide this is that moment. I sweep the guest book from its little laurel stand with the back of my hand. It skitters. Pages flutter like frightened birds. The pen flies, clicks twice on the floor. "Excuse me," says Mr. Keene, startled this time, not rehearsed. "Watch," I say, and run for the door, the guest book pages still falling. Outside is inside. The falling pages are still mid-flight, disobedient birds. "Take your time," says the man who cannot be surprised. I stop. I stare at the clock. The hands are at 3:17. They were at 3:17 when Aunt Ruth left. They were at 3:17 when the pastor praised my father's kindness at a volume that felt like a command. They have been at 3:17 long enough for my head to build a structure under the thought I am trapped. "Did you want more time?" asks Mr. Keene, because his job is to offer polite versions of the truth. "Yes," I say. "But not like this." His smile is the smile you put on a corpse when you need the family to approve the picture. I try every door that isn't the door. The side door that says employees only. The double doors to viewing room B where once, as a boy, I saw another family's grief and believed it belonged to a different species. The door that should go to the office, which holds file cabinets full of the names of men who were not mine. Every door opens. Every threshold breathes cool air for the length of a single step. Every threshold leads into the parlor, into the hush, into the floral suffocation, into the box where my father fails to move. "Sir," says Mr. Keene on my third circuit, departing from his script. "This is. I haven't. Hasn't it happened before?" I ask, desperately wanting him to answer yes in a way that means "and here is what you do." He moistens his lips as if the correct answer lives under them. "No," he says, and the word falls like a book off a high shelf. I test the windows. There are 4, high and generous, with gauzy drapes that make the day outside look like a suggestion. The locks click like knuckles. The sashes lift. Cold slips in. Outside, leaves, asphalt, a car, takes one soft breath. I climb. One leg over. A palm on the sill. The cold bites my wrist. And I am standing in the parlor, hand on the coffin. "Take your time," says Mr. Keene, and I scream. It bounces off the ceiling plaster, and the lilies drink it, and my father does not flinch, and Mr. Keene closes his eyes like a man trying to locate his own patience. "Water," he suggests, as if the problem is thirst. "I am leaving," I say, entirely too calm for my blood. "Watch me leave." "Of course," he says, because politeness is a shield against physics. I take a path I haven't taken, past the framed landscapes, around the corner where the carpet turns a darker red like a private joke, down the hall that smells like formaldehyde and furniture polish. A sign on a door reads "Preparation." The knob is cold. When I turn it, it does not resist. A stainless steel table. A length of clear tubing. The kind of metal sink that looks like it remembers stains without holding them. This room is for work. Work is honest. It reassures me in a way it probably shouldn't. There is a second door in the prep room, plain as a cupboard in a kitchen where you don't know where anything is. I open it. The parlor. The coffin. The lilies. 3:17. Mr. Keene. "Take your time," he says, and this time his voice cracks. Something must be counted. I go to the guest's book and set it back upright, smoothing the pages as if smoothing the hair of a frightened animal. The signatures are the parade of a day: Aunt Ruth's loops, the hardware man's block letters, the woman with the clover tattoo who works the register at the liquor store. Date, name, address. Each entry fixed. Each entry a testimony. I look for mine. I had signed when I arrived because you sign what you love, even into absence. I do not find it. At the bottom of the most recent page, I pick up the pen and write. I am writing to see if this changes anything. My hand is steady. The ink is cheap. Words look ridiculous when you know they are helpless. I sign my name as if notarizing my own panic. When I look up, the clock is still at 3:17. When I look back down, the line above mine reads, in my handwriting, "I am writing to see if this changes anything." It is the same sentence. Same press of the N, same slight flourish on the Y. But where I remember writing it as a first sentence, it sits as a second. The line below is blank. The line above, newly crowded, belongs to Aunt Ruth. The ink is dry. The page is flatter than grief. I write again. It doesn't. I look up. 3:17. I look down. The page now has 3 lines. Aunt Ruth. I am writing to see if this changes anything. It doesn't. Below that blank? Mr. Keene. I say, not sure if I'm summoning a man or a mirror. He comes because that is his job. He looks at the book because I look at the book. He reads aloud, in the polite voice of a man reading the names of donors at a fundraiser. "Aunt Ruth," he says. Then, baffled, "Sir," and says my 2 sentences as if their meanings might be improved by being spoken. When he finishes, he sees the new line. He flinches. On the page. Stop. I did not write that. I sign the new word even though something in me understands that the signature is not proof. Each time my pen lifts, a new line slots itself above mine, perfect, as if the book is writing me into it. The new lines are simple instructions. Stop. Stop. Please. Stop. Do you see that? I ask. Yes, says Mr. Keene, and looks like he would prefer to be a man who sells tires for a living. Can you go? I ask. He nods as if I have asked him a question he can answer. He steps to the door. He puts his hand on the brass. He opens onto ordinary hallway air, the corridor that has brought so many people to so many different sorts of endings. He steps. He reappears beside the coffin, soft as a repetition, smoothing his tie with a hand that shakes. Take your... He begins, then stops, because it has occurred to him that there is no point in pretending. The clock is very proud of its constancy. When you spend a long time looking at a face that is no longer a face, you start inventing changes. The left eyelid lifted. The corner of the mouth relaxed. The nostrils widened by the width of a human hair. Every imagined twitch is a threat and a comfort. I stare at my father until my eyes ache. I take inventory so I can argue with my fear later. He wears the suit we agreed upon, navy, subtle chalk stripe. The tie my mother gave him on their 20th anniversary, she said it made him look like he kept promises. The little awkward square of his handkerchief in the pocket, the one he refused to learn to fold properly because that kind of male competence felt to him like vanity. His hands lie one on the other at the belly, wedding band gold. There is a nick on the knuckle he got when I was 6, when he tried to fix the bedroom door with a screwdriver he should not have used. I had cried at the blood. He had laughed and told me all good things leak. His mouth is closed. The line of his jaw is the line I inherited. The makeup is better than some. They have been careful not to paint a person onto what isn't one. His eyelids are closed. Mostly. I lean nearer. It is a terrible thing to do, bending close to see whether the dead man's eyes have changed. It's more terrible when you find you are right. Between lash and lash, the faintest sliver of brown. Not iris, too stopped for that. Not pupil, nose shine. A sliver of eye like the seam of a seed. I hold my breath, because breath is all I have to hold. Dad? I whisper, and my voice has the old boyish break that embarrassment taught me not to have. Nothing moves. The seam stays seam. The clock clicks. The lilies keep parading their white mouths. I slide my index finger under the satin pillow and press. The body shifts, just a fraction, the way a table shifts when you push it to see if it wobbles. The eyelid seam widens the merest fraction. Don't, says Mr. Keene, offended not by the desecration but by the hope. Did you? I begin. Don't, he repeats, because he cannot allow this room to become a place where hope speaks under its breath. I step back. I sit. I stand. I walk the parlor's rectangle until I can do it blind, 12 strides long, 7 strides wide, 1 stride around the pedestal with the lilies, 2 to miss the chair someone moved and never moved back. I try the door again. 3:17. He is still in the box. He knows one more thing about me. By the 3rd hour of not leaving, I am thirsty. There is a console against the far wall with water in a pitcher and paper cups like shrugging flowers. I pour. The water tastes like it learned manners from the vase. I drink it anyway, because bodies have rules that make no allowances for absurdity. On the console, a stack of prayer cards with a picture on the front, St. someone with gentle hands, and a lamb, because death is a petting zoo, and printed words on the back. The dates form a bracket around a life. The name, my father's, complete. It looks like it has always been printed, like the printer did not have to summon the letters. There is something oppressive about seeing his name in that font. I flip the card to avoid his name, and stare at the picture. The saint's eyes look kindly at a horizon. The lamb is intent on whatever small grass is not yet eaten. The colors are water that has learned to hold an image. On the edge of the stack, tucked under the top card, something not aligned with the rest. I take it. Another card. Same saint. Same lamb. On the back, the same font. The same places for dates and name. But the name is not my father's. It is mine. I set the card down as if it is hot. I do not want to bend the corner with my panic. I slide the stack back over it as if to starve it of light. Sir? Says Mr. Keene, and I realize I have made a noise I would not like to hear. I put my hands flat on the console, the way you do when you are about to faint or hit someone. The wood is polished enough to hold what is left of my face. Did you print a? I begin, and the question is too foolish to finish. Prayer cards for the living? The parlor has rules. It will keep them until it doesn't. The lilies are listening. The clock is an insult. I go back to the coffin and take my place in the chair I have made the chair. This is my pew. I will worship with the only liturgy left to me, watch, try to leave, watch again. My father's left eyelid has decided to be a little generous. What would you like me to do? Asks Mr. Keene, and there is genuine ache in it. He is a man equipped for common grief, and this is not that kind. Tell me how you got this job. I say, because story is a rope I can tug. If it brings up a bucket of water, I can drink. He blinks thrown. It was my father's, he says, and even as he says it, I see the trap he has fallen into. We bury our fathers. We become them. Do you like it? It is necessary, he says, which is not an answer. Where do you go at night? He looks at me as if I have asked him to reveal his undergarments. Home. Where is that? I ask, and he tells me an address on a street that has dressed itself the way other streets dress. I try to picture him there, in a room that does not smell like this one. I cannot. Have you ever? He gestures, encompassing the loop with his thin fingers. Had this? No, he says. No. Do you believe in God? He smiles then, helpless. In the old days I would have said yes without remembering I had said it before. Today I want to say, with perfect clarity, that if there is a God, he has rules like this room does, and I have been hired by the wrong company. Do you believe in anything? He looks at my father and at the lilies and at the guest book where our conversation briefly became a script, and he says quietly, I believe in endurance. It's a shabby belief. It's also the only one I can carry without dropping. Then endure with me, I say. He nods, and sits in the chair opposite mine, across the coffin, like we are playing a game of chess without the board. We try leaving together. Hand on the brass, one step, cool air, parlor. Hand on the brass, one step, cool air, parlor. Hand on the brass, one step, cool air, parlor. On the fifth attempt, we don't push through. We stand in the doorway together and agree to study the hand's breadth of outside. It is not a photograph. It is not a wall painted beautifully. It has motion. Dust hangs where light balks at glass. A car door opens far away. Sound comes as much through the wood under our feet as through the thin slice of air. The parking lot's heat is its own weather. You see it? I say. He nods. The tendons in his neck are tight as strings. Does it see us? He moves his head a fraction of an inch toward the parlor. This does. We let the door fall. We return to our chairs like parishioners who forgot the gospel and are pretending they didn't. On the sixth attempt, I jump through. I put my entire body into the motion, a child flinging himself through fear, a swimmer going from cold dock to colder water because hesitation is worse than winter. I land and outside with my hands up as if expecting applause. The air smells like wet leaves and motor oil and the faint chemical of cleaning agent that loves institutions. The light is gray and patient. The line of cars is a line of cars. I do not hesitate. I sprint. 2 strides. 3. The asphalt becomes carpet under my shoes. The door jumps toward my hand. The lilies are very proud of their smell. The clock has learned only one sentence. Take your time, says Mr. Keene, but in his voice I hear the tiniest flare of hope. I did something you cannot do in a photograph. I moved. The eyelid seam reveals almost the whole of an iris now. The brown is flat, no life in it, but my father's eye is open to the size of a lie. At 3:17, the phone rings. It is the kind of phone that belongs in a place like this: wood base, brass bells, a receiver that boasts weight. I did not notice it before because it did not behave like a thing that belongs to the world. It rings once. Again. Again. The sound is too cheerful to survive in this room. Mr. Keene looks at me as if I should answer it because it is my father's day. I look at him as if he should answer it because he is the one who lives under this roof. We both fail to move. On the 4th ring, my body decides to earn its keep. I cross the parlor, cradle the receiver, put it to my ear. Static first, the kind that says distance. Then a breath, close. Then a voice identical to the one that taught me to ride a bike and to lie if a lie would keep a friend safe. You'll be late, says my father. It is not a question. It is the kind of announcement he specialized in, a fact that leaves you the dignity of pretending to choose. Dad? I hear myself say, very young. You'll be late, he repeats. Then, because calls from the dead must include advice. Don't argue with the door. It only listens to you. What does that mean? I ask, falling into the old role of the boy who wants instructions to be literal. I place my palm on the table beside the phone to feel whether gravity is still the way it was. You'll be late, he says, again that smallest chuckle. You always were. Where are you? I ask, because the parlor has made me stupid. In the parlor, he says, and I hate him very briefly for how much he loves a joke. The line goes silent. The static ceases. The phone is no longer a machine. It is wood again. Who was it? Asks Mr. Keene, playing a part in a play that will end badly. My father, I say, and it is at once the most ridiculous sentence I have said and the one that fits this room like a glove. The lilies turn. A floral arrangement has a schedule. First days are exhibition, 3rd days are the beginning of surrender. Lily breath curdles, rose edges brown, the baby's breath should not have been invited. I watch a petal loosen, like a tongue that has spoken too much, and fall. It doesn't land, it is already landed in the tableau the parlor respects. But in the space between watching and the landing that has already happened, I smell the sweet rot as if a window opened over a compost heap. Smell is the oldest kind of truth. It ignores performance. It makes a mockery of clocks. I stand. I go to the arrangement. I press my face into it like a child who has not learned not to ruin his clothes. I inhale until my throat protests. Under lily, under rose, under green water and florist's wire and ribbon dyed in bad light, the faintest acid of formaldehyde. They cannot keep it out, the room is steeped. It climbs everything, notices, annotates. I go back to my chair with the smell behind my eyes. The corpse is a little wrong now in a way I feel with my nose and not with my eyes. It is the difference between a person asleep and a person who has been told to pretend very convincingly. Are you all right? Asks Mr. Keene, which at this point is theater. I am alive, I say, because saying it is the only thing that does anything to the room. The eyelid is now fully open. The eye inside is not. It is brown, no light. My father is watching me in the sense that a picture watches. I pretend this is better than the alternative and fail. The parlor has a mirror. All such rooms do. It is meant to provide you with a way to fix your hair after grief has yanked it. I realize I have not seen my face since the morning. I stand before it like a penitent and let the glass do its work. It is me, yes. Older than I feel and younger than I pretend. My tie is crooked. My eyes are red. There is a crease across my cheek from where, sometime today, I leaned into a hand too hard. Behind me in the glass, the coffin, the lilies, the clock. My father lying. His eye is closed in the reflection. I turn. In the room, his eye is open. I turn back to the mirror. Closed. I do not make the mistake of looking back and forth quickly. I have been in rooms with children and dogs. I know how to refuse to be a toy. Mr. Keene, I say, very casual. Do you see? Yes, he says, exactly the instant the thought reaches language. He is looking only at the mirror. He is not looking at the coffin. He is not looking at me. We stand before the mirror as if it can absolve us. It does what such surfaces always do, shows you what you can build a story out of. In it, the dead behave. Behind us, they do not. I raise my right hand. The man in the mirror raises his left. Behind me, my father's open eye follows the hand in the mirror, not the hand in the room. Stop, says the guest book, without being written in. I lower my hand. I say my name quietly into the mirror. The mirror writes it across my chest like a priest stole. When I turn away from the glass, I am still wearing it. I feel the weight of the letters on my collarbones like demand. I am beyond being polite. I lean over the coffin. I put a fingertip under the lapel of my father's suit jacket and lift. The funeral parlor light makes everything look like it has confessed already. The satin clicks like a tongue. The collar of his white shirt has a faint gray memory of a neck. In the jacket pocket, the folded square of his handkerchief, imperfect, like always. I lift it. It has been placed in the pocket to be seen, not touched. It resists like a small animal. It comes free with the sound paper makes when you ask it to hold a secret. Behind it, tucked as if a tailor wanted to remind a customer of a measurement, a piece of paper. I slide it out carefully. It is the kind of paper any office owns. Torn on one edge, clean on the others. Folded twice. On it, in the careful hand of a man who did not like to be misunderstood. If you won't leave, then learn. Nothing else. No signature. No arrow. No explanation. I turn it over, stupidly hoping the back will have the part where he stops being cruel for sport. Blank. Sir? Says Mr. Keene, aghast. You can't. Steal from the dead? I ask. He owed me at least this much theft. I fold the note back exactly as it was. I tuck it behind the handkerchief. I press the handkerchief to make the pocket again a small theater of order. I smooth the jacket, a child pretending to be a man. Then I do what the note says. I learn. I sit. I watch. I listen. I count. I try the door every 17 minutes because 17 has been appointed as the number of jokes this room enjoys. Each time, outside and back. Each time, the body changes the smallest fraction. The eyelid widens. The eye learns the room. The mouth loosens, just there, at the corner where he used to smile when he wanted me to see he was about to make a bad joke. And the note in my pocket, beating like a second pulse. If you won't leave, then learn. People are not allowed to return to a funeral they've already left. That is the first rule. It keeps grief from turning into a hobby. So when Aunt Ruth crosses the parlor, I stand, because rules like to be greeted before they break. She wasn't here a moment ago. She is now. Her coat is on. Her purse is the purse that smells like mint and aspirin. She sees me and begins to preen, hand at her hair, the way she always does when she is about to say something she wants to be remembered. Oh, she says. Still here. So are you, I say gently, because love requires that you not point out the stupid parts of the people you owe your face to. I forgot my scarf. she says, in the tone of a woman who will never forget a thing again if she can help it. She looks at my father, at the box, at the lily petal that refuses to land. Something in her face flickers like a pilot light testing the idea of flame. I thought you left, I say. I did, she answers, impatient, the way you sweat at a fly. I went to the car. I thought about how he used to drive too fast. She looks at me with pride and pain, both. He got that from your grandfather. How did you get back? The door, she says, as if there is any other way. She retrieves a scarf that was not there a moment ago from the chair that used to be only a chair. She pauses. The muscle in her jaw I inherited twitches. She turns back to the coffin. He looks good, she says, which is the sentence that convinced me once that the world can be cruel and believe itself polite. He looks like this room made him look, I say, and immediately regret it because sorrow should not have to write essays to be allowed to exist. She searches for words. She glances at the clock and decides to leave because time makes decisions for us when we stand too long in front of it. She turns to the door. Aunt Ruth. I say her name to fetch her back. When you step out. I know how to leave a room, she says, and steps into outside. The parlor accepts her. The door falls. She is not in the parlor. The lilies do not adjust to her absence. The guest book does not record her return. It is the first thing in hours that behaves like something that can be lost. Did you see? I start to Mr. Keene. No, he says. She did not come back. She left. And then she went to her car, I say, and find I have breathed for a moment without thinking about it. The corpse has learned a new thing. The left cheek has a color in it now, the faintest blush, as if the formaldehyde has decided to learn shame. If I stand with my hand on the door and do not step, I can watch the outside hold still, an obedient dog. If I look away and look back quick, it moves a fraction, a leaf's edge, the mirror of a chrome hubcap, the drip line of water from the eaves. The door only listens to me, says my father. I test it. I press my palm to the wood as if taking its temperature. Let me out, I say. The door is a door. It could listen to anyone. It does not. Please, I say, because I was raised to mind my mouth. The brass cools under my fingers as if a hospital floor has been threaded into it. I tilt it. I open the gap. I breathe the outside. I do not step. Do I need to say the word? I ask, and the room does not answer because the room is not a person. I try names. Of streets. Of towns. Of the river. Of the farm my father grew up on that I saw only once, in a summer that burned my shoulders into a map. The door allows the air to cool my knuckles. It refuses to behave like a throat. You'll be late, says my father from the coffin, not with his mouth, but with the small voice the brain reserves for ventriloquism. I face him. The eye is open and the iris has learned shine. There is a tiny film of moisture at the corner, the kind you dab with a tissue when life is told to perform. A sound escapes me that I will not translate. I take a step toward him. I am done being a librarian in this room. I am a son and my father is trying to look at me without being allowed to. I put both hands on the coffin rim. Can you hear me? I ask. The lips part. The minimum required to be a yes. I bend until my face is inches above his. I smell the chemist's mercy. I smell the lily's crime. I smell the man who taught me to roll a baseball off the tips of my fingers so it would knuckle in the summer light. Can you leave? I ask. The lips do not move. The open eye looks not at me but at a point over my shoulder, as if a teacher has asked him a question and he is pretending to think of the answer while reviewing the options written on the board behind my head. I turn because this room has taught me I must be an obedient audience to a malign play. The mirror shows my face leaning over a closed box. The guest book shows a new line, don't turn. I turn back instinctively, and everything in me throbs with the understanding that the line was right. My father's open eye is closed. Take your time, says Mr. Keene, which is how the devil says hurry. The flowers have learned to rot in place. The baby's breath has become brown lace. The roses are little mouths saying oh no. The lilies are still beautiful, which is their kind of obscenity. I rearrange them. I pull the lily stems free with a prisoner's tenderness. The florist's tape gives like a bruise. I remove them from the bouquet and lay them on the console. I turn the spray's face away from the coffin. I give my father a view of greenery and rose, and I remove the white insistence of the lily's throat. It should not matter. It matters. The room sighs. The parlor loves a correct thing. This is a small correction and an enormous insult, and it takes it like a child being told no without looking at you. Sir, says Mr. Keene, aghast. Please. Please what? I ask. Do not intervene, he says, having searched the seduction of the words touch, change, undo. There is nothing in this room I have not already been asked to live with, I say. You can scold me when I move the furniture in your house. This is mine. He opens his mouth to reply, and then he does the kindest thing anyone has done for me in hours. He closes it. I sit. I look at the coffin. I look at the lilies removed. I look at my father, whose mouth is the album of my childhood. I look at his eye, closed again, and decide to disobey the guest book. I do not look away. For a long time I do not look away. At last the eyelid trembles. It is nothing like life. It is all the way like life. The eye opens. The iris finds my head like a compass finds north. He looks at me. Not past me. Not at the mirror version of me. At the boy who can no longer be the boy he made. I forget how to be the age I am. Dad, I say, stupid, perfect. He blinks. And in that blink is more of him than in the entire careful paint on his skin. Please, says the guest book. I keep my eyes on his until they burn. I say the only thing he taught me that matters. I'm here. A second blink. A shine at the edge. The faintest lift at the left corner of the mouth, like a man who wants to comfort you without saying in front of other people that he loves you. I'm here, I say again. The room listens. The clock says 3:17 because that is all it knows. Funeral programs have the humility to be beautiful and the arrogance to believe they will be kept. There is a stack on a little table behind the last row of chairs. I take one because I have been trained by a life of small rituals. Inside, a photo of my father chosen after the argument no one remembers by the loser, because the winner never doubts. The picture is the one with the stupid hat, taken at a picnic where he got sunburned because men pretend they are not red until you show them a mirror. He is smiling with his eyes at my mother, who is just out of frame. Every time I look at it, I love him and also want to remove the hat from the universe. Below the photo, the order of service. The hymn we did not sing because no one knew it. The verse from Ecclesiastes misprinted as Ephesians. The names of the pallbearers, misspelled twice if you count pallbearers. The place and time. My father's name, again. The dates that miss nothing and say nothing. On the last page, a short biography. Where he was born. The work he did. The years he coached the Little League and the years he declined and the people who took this personally. At the bottom, the family. I read the family list as if it is a poem, preceded in death by, survived by, under which I am one of the survivors, a small mouth under the ocean. I read it again. The list has a new name. It is mine. Not where it should be. There are places to put survived by names and places to put the sentence you don't put in the program because it ruins the kind of grief people can tolerate. It is at the bottom, under the hymn, under the verse, under the stupid hat. It says in loving memory of, and then it says me. I look up. The room is a patient invention. The coffin. The lilies aside. The mirror sulking. The guest book practicing impertinence. I lower my eyes. The program says in loving memory of him, as it should. I put the paper down like it is heavy. I imagine the printing press ink that made it. I imagine the university press my father taught me to be in awe of. I imagine language being forced to behave. I hold the note in my pocket like a second spine and say in my head the spring where he took me fishing and the first time he spoke my full name like a sentence and meant proud. Take your time, says Mr. Keene, and for the first time I want to hurt him. The parlor grew smaller in silence. The corridor lengthened and then snapped back like a rubber band. The smell of lilies acquired a low growl. The clock refused to be anything but 3:17 even as shadows under the chairs deepened like a second midnight. Mr. Keene folded his hands in his lap and practiced a salesman's patience. The phone did not ring again. The river behind my father's eye moved, very slightly, the way a thought decides it can live in an old room. I took off my jacket. I rolled up my sleeves. I stood the way a boxer stands in the corner, not because I intended to fight, but because my body needed a role to play. My father watched me. That is what I call it now, watching. There is a better word, but there is not a word that the air in that room would have allowed. At last I said the thing I had not allowed into my throat. You're not the first person to be caught here, are you? He blinked, which in that place is a yes. How do we leave? I asked. Nothing. Then, the smallest movement of the right hand, the top hand, the funeral hand. The index finger wanted to lift, and could not. It told me where to look, and where to keep looking until I learned. If I say, hours, do not believe me. If I say, minutes, believe me even less. Time is a tone in that room, not a fact. I learned the parlor the way a prisoner learns a cell, with my bones. 12 strides long. 7 strides wide. 2 to miss the moved chair. 4 between coffin and mirror. 3 between lilies and console. Lilies added to, lilies removed. I learned the exact weight of the door in my hand and the exact moment it decides to not be a door. I learned that if I whispered my own name, the guest book wrote it, and if I whispered his, it didn't. I learned the part of my father's face I had never memorized as a child because children think their parents' faces are a feature of the weather, the little divot in the forehead that looks like concentration when it is empty of thought. It deepened. That is how I know he was thinking. I learned that when Mr. Keene stood, the room flinched. He is part of the furniture here in a way that protects the room and betrays him. What are you learning? He asked once, in a voice without hope. How to watch, I said, which was both true and insufficient. He nodded as if I had said something adult. My father used to say, he began, and stopped, his mouth a child in church who cannot keep still. He folded his hands on themselves. The change came like weather. Slow. Then all at once. The open I learned to shine without the mirror. The closed one, jealous, followed. The mouth opened a little more, enough to show the line of teeth that dentists admired annually, and I hated because they cost us 3 months' groceries when I was 11. The chest. No. It did not rise. Do not give the room that image. The chest was the chest. The suit was the suit. The movement was in the face only, and in the hand that wanted to be a pointer and had been trained to be a folded thing. Can you move? I whispered, not looking away. The mouth made the shape of a vowel. Not a. Not o. The shape you make when you are not sure which word you are about to say. Like this, I said. And I lifted my right index finger a millimeter, the kind of movement that registers at the neck before the eye. A ripple through his face. A plan assembled. The hand in the satin shifted. A twitch. The funeral director made a sound that could have been don't and could have been prayer. The fingertip lifted and fell. A fraction of a breath's worth of motion. Enough to serve as a yes written in a language this room respects. The next time we touched the door, it moved half an inch more than it had, and stopped. The parlor is a stomach. It does not intend to let anything go until digestion is complete. Learn faster, I told myself. If you won't leave, then learn, said the paper. He was watching me. I watched back. And when he blinked the third time in that hour, I understood what he wanted me to see. Not him. Me. The brass plate at the foot of the coffin, which had held my father's name since 317, had learned mine. The letters shone like good manners. My father's name was no longer the sentence. My name was perfect there, indifferent to my throat. I pictured the printer, the engraver, the nonsense this would be in any room that is not this one. I reached down and touched the plate like a thief. It was warm because everything in this room is room warm, not because the name is a person. Mr. Keene, I said, and the sound of his title in my mouth was a habit I had not unlearned. He came to my side, because polite men are compelled by summons. He bent, because he is nonetheless human. He read, because reading is how he believes he lifts weight. He did not say my name. It is the kindest thing he has done. I have to ask you to not, he began, and then there was nothing to ask me not to do that would matter. What happens to people who won't leave? I asked him, and I meant what happened to you. He stood. He looked at the door. He looked at his hands. He looked at my father's face, which had learned to be a face again without the dignity of breath. I haven't seen this before, he said finally, playing honesty like a card. But, I said. But, he agreed. He smoothed his tie. He found a small dust on the coffin rim, and removed it as if removal were a ritual that could alter the day. Sometimes the room needs an exchange. A trade, I said. He nodded, grateful for the uglier word. It is not my doctrine, he added, ridiculous and true. I put my palm on the plate and pressed until the warmth became a pain I could carry. I bent until my forehead touched the edge of the coffin and the satin whispered to my skin. I said my father's name very quietly into wood, and the wood did not answer. Learn faster, I told myself again, and learned. My father's instruction returns like a hymn. Don't argue with the door. It only listens to you. I stop pushing. I stop begging. I stop asking the door for permission it cannot grant. I stop announcing intention. I stop narrating my own attempts like a man trying to impress a jury. I sit with my hands on my knees. I put my shoulders back. I breathe in a count of 4, out a count of 4, the way the very expensive therapist taught me when love left in a U-Haul. I let my father look at the practice. I let the parlor fill with the little sound of air and organs that sound like a tide in a small bowl. When my ribs have decided I mean it, I stand without noise. I cross the room in 12 silent strides. I do not touch the brass. I do not touch anything. I stand in the doorway and become a thing in a frame. Only listens to you. I picture my body walking into the parking lot. I picture sunlight doing to me what everyone tells you sunlight does to dread, which is embarrass it into being smaller. I picture the asphalt under my feet and the exact hollow my shoes would make in the day. I take a step. I do not try to take it. I do not plan it. I let the day decide whether the weight I am deserves to sit on it. I am in the parlor. And this matters, it is closer. The door is an apology, the gap is a long vowel. The outside smells less like a suggestion and more like an invitation written by a person who knows how to spell my name. I turn without letting my eyes leave the frame and look, in the mirror, at the boy who is doing exactly what I am doing, and in the coffin, my father is smiling the smallest smile a mouth can make without being accused of joy. Again, says Keene, and for once the correct command is being given by the correct man. I go to the door. I stand. I do not argue. I step. I am in the parlor. The clock says 3:17. The lilies are rotting beautifully. The nameplate says me. My father's eye says try again. It becomes a practice. Stand, breathe, step, return, sit, watch, learn, stand, breathe, step. Each time, the outside increases by a sliver, like a coin being slid toward you across a bar in a town that expects you to be polite. Each time, the parlor releases the smallest additional claim on the hinge. Each time, my father changes a hair. The mouth more comfortable being a mouth. The eyes more comfortable being eyes. The hand more comfortable being a hand that has lifted a child from a car seat and now cannot be permitted to lift itself from a silk bed. In the fourth repetition, he blinks the blink I remember from mornings when his back hurt. In the sixth, he exhales the faintest exhale, a sound and not a breath. In the eighth, his finger moves enough to tap the satin, a cupboard shut. In the 10th, when I stand in the doorway and am very nearly in both rooms, the phone rings. Don't, says Keene, because even his civility has learned triage. I pick it up because that is what boys do when their father's voice is behind the line. You'll be late, says my father from a place that is not the Coffin and is also exactly the Coffin. The humor in it is so familiar that I lean my head into the curve of the receiver and pretend the room is the old kitchen and the clock is the one that used to be 5 minutes fast on purpose. For what? I ask, and I know the answer and say it anyway. For being me, he says, and it is advice and a sentence. I put the receiver down. I go to the door. I do not argue. I step. As the parlor pulls and the outside lets, the nameplate at the foot of the coffin makes a small, dignified sound like a throat being cleared in a respectful room. The letters shift. They do not return to my father's name. They become a third thing. They spell what he called me when I was 5 and we built a tent in the living room and he fell asleep in it before I did. They spell my childhood. I look back. I look forward. He looks at me like a man making a deal with a boy he loves. I take another step. The parlor bites. The outside takes my shoulders. The coffin moves the fraction of an inch a table moves when you discover who it belongs to. Take your time, says Mr. Keene, and for the last time it is a sentence that makes any sense at all. The door accepts. The room refuses. My father blinks. The plate shines. The lilies fall. The clock is a liar. And across the gap, with his mouth open enough to shape my name like a rope, he begins to speak. He forms the beginning of my name, the small open vowel, the one you teach a child when you want him to pretend a doctor is not putting wood on his tongue. His lips do not go further. He closes them again as if the room pinched. You'll be, says the memory of his voice, a ghost that travels on old wires, and then the line inside me goes dead. Late, I answer, and the answering is a way of being born again and older at the same time. The nameplate glows with the version of me that is truer than the registry office. The rope he shouted from the porch when the bus came early and I ran, backpack open, lunch and argument behind me. Buddy. Scout. Not. Choose one, they all fit. The plate has chosen the smallest, the one he used when he needed me to be brave without telling me to be brave. Not. Mr. Keene studies the plate as if it were breaking news in a language he does not speak. This is not, he says, and his breath fails to lift the next word proper. Nothing about this is, I say, and go to the door to practice the single prayer the room obeys. Stand, breathe, step. Outside catches my front teeth. Parlor pulls at my molars. I am too, split by a jam. The lilies have the modesty to look away. The clock says the lie it loves. My father's smiling not smile fits into the light the way a coin fits a slot. I step back. The room gulps me whole. Keene, who knows we have reached a place in the day where he must make the error he has avoided, says, "The exchange, then?" "Tell me," I say, because I am tired of learning without a teacher. He rubs his tie between finger and thumb the way a man reaches for talismans when polite gods do not answer. "It counts," he says. "This room. It keeps the ledger. It does not accept a body without a tally. A name in, a name out, a name kept." He glances at the guest book as if it might sue him for plagiarism. "Who taught you that?" I ask. "The room," he says, and his mouth looks ashamed of the words. "My father left me less." "Did it keep him?" The question is cruelty delivered as curiosity. He flinches, and then nods once. "It keeps something of everyone who works here long enough. I had hoped to be clever enough to pay installments." "What does it want from me?" "Your smallest," he says. "The version you know you can live without until you can't." I put my palm on the plate. "Not." The word warms my skin more than the brass. I try it in my mouth and feel the way my jaw remembers turning to it. If I give this, what else does it hold on to, what else unravels? "Don't," says the guest book in the space my eye isn't, writing "don't" slowly, as if to make it gentler. "Then how?" I ask the wet air, the man, the body, the clock. "Learn faster," says the note in my pocket, smug as an old warning. The guest book begins to misbehave the way an honest ledger does when it has been asked to lie too long. Aunt Ruth's signature fades a shade. The hardware man's block letters blur at one corner, as if they were written with a pen that gave out and was coaxed back. Between their names, where I wrote it doesn't, a second hand appears, mimicking mine, tracing the same letters as if forging them would make the sentence more true. "What happens if I sign nothing?" I ask. "You already have," Keene says, looking at my face and the mirrors and the plates. "Not here," I say, and put my hand deliberately, defiantly, in my pocket like a man removing his wallet to pay for a drink he might not finish. I touch the note. "If you won't leave, then learn." I don't pull it out. I let it be the warm secret against the cloth. I pick up the pen for the guest book. I write what I wish was a spell and is only a sentence. Release him. Keep the name that is no longer mine. I sign. I do not look at the line above. The book, insulted, writes back on the line below. "You cannot write terms." "Worth a try," I tell it, and it invents the vindictive flourish of a bureaucrat's pen, management. I would laugh if I had breath to spend. In the mirror, the boy with my tie crooked tries to smirk and remembers the room hates smirks. In the coffin, my father blinks again. The pivot of his attention is a knife, the handle is mine. "What if he doesn't want to leave?" I ask Mr. Keene, the way a son asks a man with a pen if rules could possibly be love. "He does," Keene says, surprising me. No hesitation. No script. "He left you a note to teach you how." "He left me a bill," I say. He inclines his head, old-fashioned, in a sorrow that expects no tip. "If it helps, the room does not accept generosity. It only understands exact payment." "Does it ever forgive debt?" "In my experience," he says, "no." He tells me then, because the room is watching us not talk, and words are a way to turn your back on a beast, that his father sat where mine lies 30 years ago. Not dead, dying. "We laid him out because it soothed my mother to pretend she knew the steps," he says, and it is the first time he has used a not polite pronoun since I met him. "And the door?" "The same. The same hour. The same undertaker's trick of how to arrange a body to not offend the land. The same flowers, because we had money for nothing else, and lilies are the lie the poor tell to smell rich." "What did you trade?" I ask, the question a knife we both pretend is a spoon. I had a call from my wife, he says, his face making today's weather look generous. The phone rang. I answered. She said come home, and I forgot where home was. Forever? Until my father stopped blinking, he says, and looks away to hide the sound his throat makes. You paid your address, I say, dry-mouthed. I am a man who goes to a house I maintain, he says. It contains a bed. I put my head on it. In the morning I return. This is not a complaint. It is only the ledger. The room enjoys confessions. The lilies breathe their rot-like applause. The clock tightens its jaw on 3:17. I refuse to give it my home, I whisper. It doesn't want your mortgage, he says. It wants your small. Let it keep the thing that makes the rest of your grief bearable, and you may keep the rest. My hand tightens in my pocket around the note. Learn. Fine. I take the lilies from the console, the ones I put there like a punishment, and I carry them to the mirror and press their throats to the glass until the mirror fogs with green breath. Sir? Says Keene, alarmed. It watches too, I say, and in the glass my father's eyes are shut obedient as script. I can cover it, Keene says, as if suggesting a nap. Later. I set the lilies back, not gentle. I turn to the plate. I touch the word that is not a word you put on a diploma. Fine, I tell the brass. Take it. The room hates directness. It needs ceremony. It needs you to pretend it had the idea. I make a small altar without meaning to. The console. The program with the stupid hat face up. The prayer card with my father's printed name beneath not cheap. The second prayer card with mine tucked under it like a secret. The note from his pocket in mine, warm as a coin. The guest book open to don't. I write again. Take the smaller. Return the man. The guest book obliges me with, define. Smaller. Of course, I mutter. Keene steps forward as if entering a courtroom to give testimony he swore he wouldn't. Your first, he says. My first what? Name, he says. The one you could not pronounce all at once when you started a sentence with it. The one you built your first lie around. The one you loved your father with without knowing it was a language. It sits at the bottom of my tongue. It makes my eyes sting with the force of a memory lining up to be counted. The room leans in. All right, I whisper. But on my terms. You cannot write terms, says the guest book petty. Watch me, I say, and lay my palm flat over the plate until my hand shakes and then steadies, because I have decided. Dad, I say to him, to the man in the satin, to the eye that has learned to put me in its middle. I can't carry him and you both. The blink hurts more than anything today. And you can't carry me that way any more either, I add, and the cruelty is medicine with a raw edge. Keene bows his head like a man hearing mass for a god he cannot afford. I take my hand off the plate. I go to the door. I do not argue. I step. Half a body. The outside lines my teeth with air. Cold does a prayer on my wrists. The parlor grips my spine with a mother's fear. I say it. I do not shout. I do not whisper. I put the syllables where he used to put them when he needed me to know I was safe. The porch, the bus, the tent, the backyard where the hose made the grass into rivers. I say the name that isn't paper. I say not. The parlor inhales. The plate warms. The lilies droop in a showy swoon. My father's lips part. He exhales. Not air. Sound. It is my name returned to me without the charge, empty of spell, a casing. Not. Keep it, I tell the room. I'm done with it. The clock flutters. 3:17 becomes 3 minutes and 17.5 seconds in a way no dial can show. The room shivers like a horse being relieved of its saddle. I step again. The outside is shoulder, chest, my ribs widen. Keene makes a noise men make when a thing larger than their training happens in front of them, and their job is to either applaud nor run. I keep my eyes on the gray sky that does not know me. The room pulls one last time with the kind of insistence children put into you when they do not know they are drowning. I put both hands on the jam and say my full legal name, the one that sits on passports and credit limits and rents, without ornament, without the old rescue line, and the room releases my ankles like a mouth ashamed of the bite. I am outside. The first thing is the sound. Streets sound like 1,000 things. This one sounds like tires, and a train far enough away to be history, and a pigeon making that smug cluck under its breath, and a woman's laugh from someone's phone, and a leaf dragging itself a foot across asphalt because wind has bothered to know it. The second thing is the smell. Wet. Air unperfumed. Smoke in the state of having lost its point. The third is the time. My phone says 6:42 p.m. The sky says it has been late for a while. Behind me, through the door I have not let swing shut, the parlor is a painting. A well-lit, polite, inhospitable painting. The clock insists on its theology. The lilies are tired and unaware they have been used as scripture. The coffin holds a man like any room holds furniture. He turns his face a fraction. He looks to the door, to me. The smile loosens into something like relief and apologies and, if I'm kind, pride. Mr. Keene stands just to the side, as if to let an emergency through. Will it let you? I ask stupidly, because my mouth believes in dialogue and the room does not. The phone in the parlor rings. It should not be able to. The line should not reach. I barely remember how old wires work. Keene lifts the receiver and does not put it to his ear, as if he is older than habits. He holds it out between us like an animal either of us wants to own. It is my voice on the line, the first day I learned how to speak without lisping, saying my own full name instead of the small one that has just been ripped like a tag from my neck. It is my father's voice answering. Present. Keene says to me, to him, to the ledger. Go. He lays the receiver down as if it contains a goodbye he will not sell tickets for. He goes to the coffin with that undertaker's grace that owes manners to the lungs of the living as well as the dead. He puts a hand under my father's elbow in the old way you help a man who has sworn he does not need help. He does nothing else. He lets the room decide if this is a wedding or a theft. My father closes his eyes once, agate. He opens them. The pupils are pupils. He draws in a breath that belongs to no God and both of us. He sits. Sits. I let the door hit my shoulder because my body has realized what my head will not allow. I am at an edge you do not stand at long without falling. He swings his legs, that old comedic motion of yielding to gravity. His feet find the small footstool placed there by other hands for other ceremonies, confession of the fact that even in ritual we cheat. He stands. He sways. He learns balance like a fact forgotten. He looks at me. I can't bear it. To have my father return to me in a doorway feels like breaking into a church to shout. Go, says Keene again. It is the right word in his mouth and in this century. My father takes a step, the smallest, and does not stop to be grateful for the size of it. He reaches the jam. He touches the brass plate not with his hand but with the sleeve of his ugly suit, and the letters on it blur, as if ashamed of how cheaply they were earned. He crosses. I step back, because to be touched in the second might make me into a son forever, and I have just paid to not be a son in that way again. He breathes the outside. He makes a face at the air as if it has too much salt in it, and he is the cook who salted it. He looks at the sky and says, hoarse and amused and very alive, "We're late." "Always were," I say. He puts his hand on my shoulder. The weight is wrong, lighter, like a coat, but it is a hand, not a thing rehearsed. "You," he says, full name. It lands like a palm on a back to urge you across the street. Behind us, the room watches like a cat that discovered a door was opened without its consent. Keene does not move. The lilies collapse in place with theater. The clock thinks very hard about moving and refuses. Mr. Keene, I say, because I owe him the courtesy of a human address. Come out. He smiles in the way men do when the request is holy and they are old enough to have found 3 different religions wanting. No, he says. I am hired. You don't have to be, my father says, and the authority sits on his tongue like something hope gave him to borrow. It keeps me, Keene says, and for the first time I see his kindness for what it is, not professionalism, not piety, but captivity worn well. I'll come back, I say, because I have decided one kind of lie I can forgive in myself. You will not, he says, and makes it tender by despairing me. He turns away, already folding the blanket of the room over himself. He will arrange the lilies, throw them away, order more, learn the weight of that movement until his hands are only memory. He will say take your time to people who will not be able to. He will stand in a doorway and practice not stepping. We turn. We go down the steps into the weather. The door closes behind us without a sound. Time clears its throat. 3:18. The world rushes back into its relationship with us. A siren somewhere remembers its job. A bus has the arrogance to be on schedule. I look up and the clouds are the same clouds from childhood pictures: sheep, ships, fists, whatever you need them to be for a minute before you grow out of it. Dad, I say, and then stop because that is not the version of me the room took, and keeping it now feels like stealing from my own shrine. He saves me. Son, he says, using nothing that could be used against either of us, and laughs once the old way, as if the day had been designed for this joke. We stand like fools in a parking lot that has forgotten we were ever anything else. It takes a day before I notice the hole. Loss is shy like that. It does not brag. It waits for you to pour water into the shape it left and watch it vanish. We go to his house first because everything inside me wants to show him a kitchen that missed him. He puts his hand on the counter where his life sat and smiles the smile men learn when they are home in the place they do not remember buying. He does not know where the tea is. He does not know where the spoons pretend to live when they resent it. Top drawer, I say. No, second. You changed that years ago because the top got stuck one winter and you never fixed it. He pauses, spoon in hand like a relic, and looks up at me with that tilt of the head that, when I was 11, meant you are trying to sell me something. I did, he asks, gentle. You did, I say, cheerful and false. He pours water, stares at the cups as if they might assemble tea themselves, laughs a bit too long at his own ineptitude. We talk around it. We talk as if he had come home from a hospital that discharged him into a version of himself that needs to be rehoused broken. We talk like men who have had larger embarrassments, and will forgive each other this one out of generosity and fear. At night, when he sleeps in his bed with the discipline of a tired man, I pull the blanket off the couch and lie down and stare at the ceiling that taught me the constellations you get when you are poor and your universe is plaster. I say my name out loud, legal and full, and wait for the child version to rise like a fish. It does not. I try to picture the first time he said not like a rope tossed. I try to picture the last. The memory scuffs its feet and looks down. It won't lift its eyes from me. I close my own and whisper into the room where no ledger is listening. All right. There. On the 3rd day, I return. He's in the kitchen in a bathrobe and a towel on his shoulder, living a life assembled from rules about mornings. You don't have to, he says, chin pointing toward the door. I know, I say. I want to see. The funeral home is a building designed to disappear next to itself. It has succeeded. The sign is politely blank. The door opens to the bell and the same red mouth of carpet. The air is obedient. The parlor is a room. It has a coffin in it again, but a different one, Grief is a business, the room never goes hungry for long. Mr. Keene stands in the doorway to the hallway like a man who has learned to occupy a particular square of air so completely that no one will ask him to move. He nods at me. He nods the way men do when they are acknowledging a debt that has no mechanics that allow it to be paid. "How's the ledger?" I ask, because men like us talk shop even when the shop is a machine built to use us. "Humming," he says, and the word is so wrong here I love him for saying it. "I thought I would forget more," I say. "I forget enough. It is surgical." "It always is," he says. "It prefers clean lines." "Do you remember yours?" I ask. "My address?" He smiles without joy. "No. I have keys. They find holes that fit them. That is enough." It is a mercy and a torture, both. He glances past me to the console. I glance too, involuntary. The prayer cards have been restacked. The saint is still terrible company. The in loving memory shows a new face I don't know. I reach for the pile as if I could find myself under it. There is only what there always is. "Don't pick that scab," he advises, which is the closest he has come to being unkind. I let my hand fall. "Thank you," I say, and mean it in every direction, to him, to the room that honored a bargain, to my father who left me an instruction, to the boy who gave himself over without weeping until afterward. He almost says you're welcome. He does not, because you must not say you're welcome in a place like this. It binds the debt too tightly, it expects barbecue. "Take your time," he says instead, sly as an old man, and for the first time in my life in that room, I laugh. It echoes exactly once and then sits down. The world refuses to be a horror movie for me just because I feel like one. Bills arrive in the mail addressed to my full name. I pay them, surprised and grateful. The hardware store man forgets my name for the space of a minute and calls me pal, and I forgive him as if absolution were a spigot I can open. Aunt Ruth calls and tells me a recipe, and then says the wrong name at the end and hangs up before I can bracket her with forgiveness. The bus runs. The pigeons win. The bakery smells like a hymn. My father learns where the spoons sleep again. He stands at the sink and says my legal name like a call you know will be answered even if the house is empty. He forgets the word for hose and calls it the snake that cooperates, and we agree this is now the word for it. He asks if we should go fishing and then says, "Did we ever?" and scratches his forehead with that old little finger hitch. "We did," I say, and I remember the river and the grass and the itch and the way he put his hand on my head to make me a height that could endure not catching anything. I remember everything but what he called me when I held the line wrong and the way he put the name into a joke and taught me to hold the world. That is the hole. It does not heal. I plant a small flower in it in my thoughts so I can stop falling into it when I am tired. At night I dream we are in the tent in the living room again, and every time he says hey, hey, there is a small blank after it like a charitable pause, and then the rest of my name arrives without a sound. I wake with damp on my face and salt in my mouth and an old blanket that smells like laundry because there are worse fates than forgetting how to be 5. 2 weeks after, I am shelving returns when a woman I do not know stops in front of the mirror we keep by the exits for people to pretend to fix themselves after crying. She stares into it like a pupil who has discovered a trick of optics that makes the teacher wrong. She frowns. She lifts her right hand. Her reflection lifts its left. Behind her, in the far corner, in the place where the light makes dust into galaxies, the little metal step stool sits with its 2 gray treads like a memory. It winks, a shine that cannot be a shine because nothing is moving and the light is the light, and I am pretending to alphabetize. I go to the woman. "Can I help you find something?" I ask. She startles. Her reflection is composed. She shakes her head and says a name that will never be mine. "No," she says. "I am only leaving." "Take your time," I say, and then clap my hand over my mouth because I have learned to recognize the sounds the parlor has put in my throat. It sits there against my palm like a coin. She smiles in that brittle way people do when something true has been said somewhere nearby. She goes to the door. She opens it. She steps into outside and does not return. The mirror shows me myself, middle-aged and newer than yesterday. I stare until the ceiling loses patience. Not here, I tell the air. Not in my house. The mirror knows exactly how much it is paid. It does not misbehave again that day. On a Sunday that is only a Sunday, I take the suit to the cleaners. The woman behind the counter runs her hand inside the jacket pocket like a spell and pulls out the note I did not remember putting back there the last night the parlor let me believe it would kill me. If you won't leave, then learn. Want me to toss it? She asks, bored, a queen of small laundries. No, I say, and take it with the small greedy hand men use for relics. I hold it until my fingers make oil on the fibers. I put it in my wallet where other men keep pictures of people they cannot afford to love. At home, I sit at my father's kitchen table and write, in my careful hand so as to not be misunderstood. If you won't leave, then learn. If you learn, then leave. If you leave, then live. He squints at me from the stove, from a world where eggs are his hobby now. Homework? Ledger, I say. He points his spatula at me like a priest with an old instrument. Eat, he says. You look like a boy doing math. Always was, I say. He passes a plate across the table. He does not say my small name because he cannot, and because the room that keeps it would accuse him of breach of contract if he tried. He says my full name like a vow and a grocery list and a door with the hinge oiled. It is enough. Later that week, we go to the river. We are bad at it again in all the old ways. He tells me the story of how he learned from a man who let him be useless for a whole summer before he bothered to teach him. He makes up the name of the snake that cooperates a second time and then forgets he has. I write it down in a notebook that is not a ledger, not a guest book, not a program, not a plate. I put the notebook in my pocket. It warms with my body. When the sun hits the water just so, and we have caught nothing and it is absolutely perfect, he looks over at me with that half-smile and says, "We're late." For what? I ask, as if I am not old enough to know. For nothing, he says. Which is the best thing to be late for? We sit there being late for nothing until time hiccups with laughter, and then forgives us both. And when, years from now, I am the one in the parlor and the room hunches its shoulders to keep me, I hope some future version of me has read this in his own careful hand and understands the price and the door, and the ledger, and the trick lilies play and the way mirrors try to make you behave. I hope he has a director kinder than Mr. Keene, or exactly as kind, which is the same thing. Most of all, I hope he keeps something small to give, so the rest of him may walk out under a sky that does not know what we paid to see it. If not, then this will be left in my pocket. If you won't leave, then learn. It worked once. It is the only thing I know that is more stubborn than a clock.